Hello there, friends. Let's face it, getting older can be tough. You've lived, loved, and learned, and yet sometimes life still throws unexpected challenges your way. Aging brings a mix of joy, wisdom, and, let's be honest, its share of difficulties too. But here's the good news, it doesn't have to be that way. Today I'm sharing 9 harsh but life-changing truths that can transform the way you experience this beautiful stage of life. Some of these truths may be hard to hear. They might even stir up feelings you've buried for a long time. But trust me, they're necessary for reclaiming your peace, dignity, and happiness. And here's where things get real. What if I told you that one of the biggest mistakes we make as we grow older is trusting too easily? Yes, even family can sometimes be the ones who hurt us the most. The world paints this picture of aging as a gentle, peaceful time. But the truth is, not everyone around you has your best interest at heart. Have you ever felt that twinge of doubt? Like someone in your life may be taking more than they give? Let's talk about that. It's time to protect your peace and take control. Let's get real for a moment. Trust. It's a powerful thing, isn't it? It's what holds relationships together, makes us feel safe, and connects us to the people around us. But here's the harsh reality. As we age, trust can become a double-edged sword. It's not just about friendships and family, it's about protecting your emotional well-being from those who might not have your best interests at heart. Have you ever opened up to someone thinking they were there for you, only to realize later they were taking more than they were giving? Maybe they showed up at a time when you were feeling lonely, offering kind words and support. You trusted them and it felt good, at least at first. But as time went on, something didn't feel right. When you needed them most, they seemed to vanish, reappearing only when they had something to gain. It's hard to admit, isn't it? Especially when the people who take advantage of your kindness are the ones closest to you, family, lifelong friends, even people you've known for decades. Here's a question that might stop you in your tracks. Is trust always a good thing? We've been told all our lives that trust, especially with family, is sacred and unbreakable. But what if that trust becomes a burden? What if holding on to certain relationships is slowly draining your spirit instead of lifting you up? It's a tough realization, but sometimes the people closest to you can hurt you the most. You might keep trusting them out of loyalty, thinking that things will change. But here's the truth. Trust isn't something to be given blindly, it must be earned. This doesn't mean cutting people out of your life recklessly. It means setting boundaries that protect your peace. Boundaries aren't walls, they're gates that you control. When you open that gate to the right people, you create space for relationships that truly nourish your soul. Let me share a story. Margaret, a retired schoolteacher in her 70s, had always believed in seeing the best in people. She had a generous heart, and when her nephew lost his job, she welcomed him into her home. At first, it seemed like the right thing to do. He promised it would be temporary, but months turned into years. Slowly, Margaret found herself walking on eggshells in her own house. Whenever she tried to set boundaries, her nephew dismissed her concerns with a casual, "We're family. Families help each other." She told herself it was fine. After all, what kind of aunt would she be if she didn't help? But deep down, Margaret felt something was off. Her energy was drained and her finances were stretched thin. It wasn't until a close friend asked her a simple question, "When was the last time you felt at peace?" that she realized how much she'd sacrificed. Taking back her life wasn't easy. It required uncomfortable conversations and difficult choices. But in the end, Margaret understood something powerful. Protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's necessary. Trusting someone doesn't mean letting them take advantage of you. Have you ever been in a situation like Margaret's? Let's turn this back to you. Have you ever found yourself in Margaret's shoes? Giving so much of yourself, your time, your energy, your resources, only to feel unappreciated or even invisible. It's a tough place to be, isn't it? Maybe it's a family member who only calls when they need something, or a friend who's always leaning on you but disappears the moment you need support. You tell yourself, "That's just how they are," or "I should be there for them no matter what." But let me ask you this, at what cost? Are these relationships uplifting you, or are they quietly wearing you down? It's okay to feel conflicted. It's human to want to hold on, especially when it comes to family or longtime friends. But here's the truth, you matter too. Your well-being, your peace of mind, and your happiness are just as important as theirs. For too long, you've been taught to endure, to sacrifice, to put others first. But what happens when there's nothing left for you? It's not selfish to prioritize your needs, it's survival. Let me share something that might make you pause. Trusting the wrong people isn't just draining, it can become a trap. You might feel like you have to keep giving, hoping that one day they'll appreciate it. But sometimes that day never comes. You keep pouring from an empty cup and they keep taking without ever giving anything back. The hardest part? It often starts so innocently that you don't even realize it's happening until you're completely drained. Margaret's story isn't unique. It happens to so many people. You give out of love and kindness, but before you know it, the relationship becomes one-sided. It's not always malicious. Sometimes people don't even realize they're taking advantage. But that doesn't change the outcome. You're left feeling used, hurt, and unsure of how to move forward. Now here's where things get even more complicated. What if the people draining you are family? Society tells us that family relationships are sacred, that loyalty to family should always come first. But should it? What if that loyalty is costing you your peace? Here's something that might be difficult to hear. Family ties don't give anyone the right to hurt you or take advantage of you. Love and loyalty should never come at the expense of your emotional well-being. Sometimes the hardest but most important act of self-love is setting boundaries, even with family. I know that's easier said than done. The guilt can feel overwhelming. You might think, if I say no, I'll disappoint them, or they'll think I don't care anymore. But setting boundaries doesn't mean you stop loving them. It means you start loving yourself too. Boundaries aren't about shutting people out. They're about letting the right people in, the ones who respect you, support you, and value your happiness as much as their own. Imagine what your life could look like if you reclaimed that space. Picture waking up each day without the weight of those toxic relationships dragging you down. No more second-guessing your worth or questioning your instincts. Instead, you'd be free to focus on the relationships that truly matter, the ones built on mutual respect, kindness, and love. Think about how light that could feel. How peaceful, how freeing. It's not about abandoning everyone, it's about choosing to surround yourself with the right people. You've spent years, decades, giving to others. Now it's time to give something back to yourself. Peace, joy, and the freedom to live life on your own terms. So take a moment and ask yourself, who in my life truly lifts me up? Who drains me? Be honest. The answers might surprise you, but they'll also set you free. You deserve relationships that nourish your soul, not ones that chip away at it. Protect your peace because it's one of the most valuable things you have. In the next part, we'll talk about an even harder truth. Stop living to please others. Trust me, this one might hit close to home. Stay with me, you won't want to miss it. Here's a harsh truth. Living your life to please others will only leave you feeling empty and unfulfilled. For years, maybe even your entire life, you've been told that being a good person means putting others first. You've sacrificed, compromised, and given everything you could. And while it brought you moments of joy, there were also moments when you felt invisible, unimportant, or completely drained. Think about it. How many times have you said yes when you really wanted to say no? Maybe you've been the go-to person for your family, always ready to help. You dropped everything for your children, helped your siblings in times of need, and stayed in touch with friends who didn't always return the favor. At first, it felt right, it's what you were supposed to do. But somewhere along the way, you started losing yourself in the process. Here's where the plot twist comes in. What if I told you that saying no isn't selfish? It's an act of self-respect. What if pleasing others isn't the noble sacrifice we've been taught to believe, but rather a trap that keeps us stuck? Take Mary, for example. For most of her life, she bent over backward for her family. She babysat her grandkids every weekend, canceled her plans to help her daughter with last-minute emergencies, and lent money to relatives who promised to pay her back but never did. It made her feel needed, at least at first. But over time, Mary started to feel like a supporting character in her own life. The people she had helped were thriving, but Mary felt stuck, overlooked, and tired. One day, Mary made a bold decision. She said no, not out of anger, but out of love for herself. It wasn't easy, but it changed everything. Mary's decision wasn't met with applause, far from it. Her family was shocked, even offended. "Why are you being so difficult, Mom?" her daughter asked. "You've always been there for us." Others accused her of being selfish or forgetting her role as the family matriarch. But here's the surprising thing: nothing bad happened. Yes, some people were upset. There were awkward conversations, silent treatments, and moments of guilt. But once the initial storm passed, something unexpected began to happen. Mary started to feel lighter. For the first time in years, her days were truly her own. She had time to rediscover hobbies she'd set aside for decades. She reconnected with old friends and even took up painting, something she'd always dreamed of doing. The plot twist? The same family members who were upset at first started to respect her boundaries. They adjusted. They found solutions on their own. Mary wasn't abandoning them. She was showing them how to stand on their own feet. And instead of resenting her, they admired her strength. What if you could do the same? Imagine what life could look like if you stopped living to meet everyone else's expectations. What would you do with that newfound freedom? Would you travel, start a new hobby, or simply enjoy the quiet joy of living life on your terms? The idea may feel uncomfortable at first, but here's the truth. You've spent a lifetime giving to others. Now it's your turn. Living for yourself doesn't mean you stop caring for those you love. It means you finally give yourself the care and respect you've always deserved. Now, before you start thinking, "But I can't just change everything overnight," let's get one thing straight. This isn't about abandoning your responsibilities or turning your back on the people you love. It's about shifting your focus from constant sacrifice to a healthier balance between giving and living. You can still care deeply for others while making space for your own joy. But here's the tough question. When was the last time you really did something for yourself? Not because it was expected, not because someone needed you to, but because it brought you peace, excitement, or happiness. Many people struggle with this because we're taught that self-care is selfish, especially in our later years. The idea that you've earned the right to put yourself first feels foreign, maybe even wrong. But let me ask you this. If you don't take care of yourself, who will? Look at the airlines. What's the first rule in an emergency? Put your oxygen mask on before helping others. Why? Because you can't help anyone else if you're running on empty. The same applies to life. Living for yourself doesn't mean you stop loving those around you. It means you love them from a stronger, healthier place. And here's where the real transformation begins. When you start living for yourself, the people around you take notice. They may resist at first, but deep down, they'll see your newfound confidence and peace. You'll inspire them to respect your boundaries, and maybe even set their own. Take John, a retired mechanic who spent most of his life living for others. For years, his time wasn't his own. He was always on call, helping his neighbors with repairs, running errands for his children, and saying yes to every request. But one day, after realizing how exhausted he'd become, John decided to make a change. He took up hiking, something he hadn't done since his 30s. At first, people complained. They asked why he wasn't available like he used to be. But John stood firm. And guess what? The world didn't fall apart. His family found new ways to handle things. His friends respected his time. And John, finally, started living the life he deserved. John's story, like Mary's, isn't just an inspiring anecdote. It's proof that change is possible at any stage of life. It's never too late to rewrite your story, to take back control, and to create the life you've always dreamed of. And the best part? You don't need anyone's permission to do it. Yes, it might feel uncomfortable at first. There will be moments of doubt, and some people may question your decisions. But here's the truth. The people who truly love you will support your happiness. Those who resist, well, maybe their role in your life needs to change. Imagine waking up every morning with a sense of freedom. No more guilt. No more pressure to meet everyone else's expectations. Instead, you're living life on your terms. You have time for what brings you joy, for experiences that nourish your soul, and for relationships that add value to your life. What would you do with that kind of freedom? Would you travel to places you've always dreamed of? Would you pick up a new hobby or rekindle an old passion? Or maybe you just savor the simple pleasure of enjoying each day. No obligations, no pressure, just peace. The choice is yours. Life isn't over. It's still unfolding, and the most beautiful chapters may be right ahead. You've given so much to the world. Now it's time to give something back to yourself. This isn't the end of your story, it's the start of a powerful new chapter. In the next part, we'll talk about how to stop clinging to the past and fully embrace the present. Sometimes, holding on too tightly to yesterday prevents us from seeing the beauty of today. Trust me, you won't want to miss this one. Let's talk about something we all do, often without realizing it, holding on to the past too tightly. Memories can be comforting, like a warm blanket on a cold day. They remind us of better times, simpler times. But here's the problem. When you cling to the past too much, it can become a trap, holding you back from fully embracing the present and the future that's still waiting for you. Maybe you've caught yourself saying, "Back in my day things were better," or "If only I could go back to that time." There's nothing wrong with nostalgia, it's part of what makes life rich. But the danger lies in letting those memories stop you from seeing the beauty in what's happening now. Here's the twist. The best days of your life might not be behind you, they might be right in front of you if you're willing to open your heart to them. Take Helen, for example. In her late 70s, she spent years living in the past, reminiscing about the golden days of her youth. She would look at old photos and tell herself that life would never be as joyful as it once was. She felt stuck, disconnected from the present. But one day, Helen decided to challenge that belief. She joined a local gardening club, not because she was particularly passionate about plants, but because she was curious. To her surprise, she found not just a new hobby, but new friendships and a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time in years, she stopped looking backward and started living in the present. The lesson here is simple but powerful. Life is still happening right now. It may not look exactly like it did in the past. The faces and places might be different, but it's still full of possibility. What if, instead of clinging to what was, you embraced what is? What new joy might you discover? What hidden beauty could unfold before you? The truth is, the present is all we really have. The past has shaped you, but it doesn't define what comes next. The best moments of your life aren't behind you, they're waiting for you to step into them. Here's something we often overlook. The present is where your power lies. It's easy to get caught up in thinking about how things used to be or worrying about what the future holds. But when you focus too much on yesterday or tomorrow, you miss what's right in front of you, today. And today is full of possibilities. It's not about forgetting your past, it's about letting it be a part of your story, not the whole story. The present may not look like the past, it might not have the same faces, places, or magic, but it holds its own kind of beauty if you're willing to see it. Think about the small moments that make life rich. A quiet walk in nature, the laughter of your grandchildren, or a heartfelt conversation with a close friend. These aren't just distractions from life, they are life. Here's a question for you. When was the last time you truly savored the present moment? No distractions, no regrets, just pure appreciation for the here and now. If it's been a while, that's okay. It's never too late to start. Take Paul, for example. In his late 60s, Paul spent years chasing after what could have been. He often thought about missed opportunities, wondering how different his life might have turned out if he had taken another path. He was so consumed by the what-ifs that he forgot to notice the life he had right in front of him. A loving family, good health, and time to enjoy the simple pleasures of life. One day something changed. Paul decided to stop living in the past and start saying yes to new experiences. He joined a photography class, something he'd always wanted to try. It didn't just give him a new skill, it gave him a fresh perspective on life. Suddenly, the world around him looked brighter, more full of possibilities than it had in years. What about you? What new adventure might be waiting for you if you stopped looking backward and started living for today? The present is a gift, one that's still unfolding. You can choose to hold on to yesterday, or you can embrace what's happening now. The choice is yours. In the next part, we'll talk about taking action and building the life you truly deserve, starting right where you are. So here we are, friends, the point where all these ideas come together. You've heard some tough truths today, but here's the most important one. You have more control over your happiness than you might think. It's time to reclaim your life. It's time to stop living for everyone else and start living for yourself. Remember, this isn't about turning your back on others. It's about giving yourself the care and respect you've earned. It's about surrounding yourself with people who lift you up, letting go of toxic relationships, and embracing the possibilities that still lie ahead. Here's what I want you to do. Take a deep breath and think about one step you can take today to prioritize your own peace and happiness. It doesn't have to be a big change. Sometimes the smallest actions can lead to the most profound transformations. Maybe it's setting a boundary with someone who drains your energy. Maybe it's finally saying yes to something you've always wanted to do. Or maybe it's simply giving yourself permission to rest, to breathe, and to enjoy the present moment without guilt. You've got this. Life is still unfolding and there's so much more waiting for you. The best part? You get to decide what comes next. If you've learned something new today, comment with 1. If not, comment with 0. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more empowering content. Let's support each other on this journey toward living life on our own terms. Thank you for watching, and here's to living your life fully, freely, and unapologetically.